Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, Umber Rays, and today we're going to be talking about a bit of news that kind of inadvertently dropped. So if you haven't heard the news yet, or maybe you just haven't seen it or anything like that, that's okay. We're going to cover it basically right here today. So recently, as it turns out, today on Twitter, Genki Online, which I'm sure I butchered that name, but fine. Anyway, let's keep moving. Genki Online basically posted a kind of a big piece about a huge advertising event that is going on in Shinjuku Station in Tokyo. Now, if you don't know about Shinjuku Station is like one of the busiest, if not the busiest. I don't actually have the data to support that, but it is an incredibly busy train station here in Japan. So every couple, or it seems like every year, there's always a big opportunity for advertising there. And about the time of TGS, video game, as you know, like the video game developers out there usually tend to put some big advertisements in Shinjuku Station, since it gets so much foot traffic. It's a great place, for the price that it is, probably generally good for advertisements. So with Brave Exvius, about this time, coming into their anniversaries, normally they make a good big advertising push. It started last year in September with the, trailers hyping the fact that Sephiroth was coming to the game. Now we have trailers starting with Aerith coming to the game, and they have been a big marketing push. But as it turns out, the Genki Online made a notification that Shinjuku got a big spread, of just a lot of, basically an entire hallway of Brave Exvius propaganda, I guess you could say. But it was what was on this propaganda that was incredibly interesting, because there were I believe it was reported that there were approximately 300 in-game sprites shown off. But it was keen-eye observers who, when they were looking at it, they noticed something slightly off. And it's in this picture right here. Now, if you can't see it right away, then you probably are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, but it's okay. I'll zoom in and enhance on a certain part. Because in the Final Fantasy VII, there are some characters spread all over and across multiple pieces of this, but there is a Cloud, an Aerith, and this guy. Wait just a second. This guy is not in the game yet. Now, honestly, this is what this video is all about. It seems that in the big marketing push that Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is currently undergoing, it does seem like this might have slipped out just a little bit. And it's interesting to think about this, because this could tell us what is coming in the near future. So I want to talk about this. First of all, has there ever been precedence? Could this be, or for a 2 months of the same Final Fantasy having banners in Brave Exvius? Is this news potentially guarantee that Zack will be coming in the very near future? And also, could it just be that at one point this had been planned in a different way? So first of all, talking about Brave Exvius' history, there hasn't been almost any cases that I could think of when I started thinking about this, of repeated Final Fantasies month to month, back to back kind of thing. But there is possibly one that we could consider here, and that was with Nyx. Now, when Nyx came to the game, he was on a Kingsglaive banner, and I believe that happened in December of last year. Now, immediately following that came another Final Fantasy 15 character, and he is not in my active character list, but never fear, there he is, was Ignis. Ignis came almost immediately after, so there is some precedence for this. It is not, you could say that it is not completely unheard of. One of the big things about Ignis coming and Nyx coming, you know, the Kingsglaive in Final Fantasy 15. Obviously, Kingsglaive is part of the Final Fantasy 15 universe, but the banners I would consider to be mostly separate from one another. If you think about, the, you know, the characters, they don't really interweave except for Lunafreya and Arden, and neither of those characters were on these banners, so really it didn't matter. Each of the characters were pretty much exclusive, and you could say that they were essentially different entries on completely different banners. So I would say that that is not necessarily the highest precedence for back-to-back banners. And if you consider what Alim has said recently, that they are interested in re-releasing old characters under more powerful status, such as Golbeza, I don't necessarily think that there is a, you know, there needs to be a Final Fantasy VII banner followed by a Final Fantasy VII banner. At least immediately, if you consider what Alim has kind of been teasing with re-releasing characters, to have two Final Fantasy VII banners back-to-back seems tad a little bit greedy. Now, the other thing I had considered is the fact that at one point, Aerith and Zack might have been on the exact same banner. Now, the reason I think this, or thought this, was because Aerith and Zack kind of share a very close connection. They were both in Crisis Core, but they kind of also had a deep connection in Final Fantasy VII. And the connection between Aerith and Red 13, Red 13 never felt like a 5-star base character or a character that would get a 5-star base. So for him to show up as a 5-star base on the same banner as Aerith, you know, it could have been changed at some point. This could be old, long printed ago material where originally this Final Fantasy VII event was going to be Aerith and Zack, which kind of makes sense. The characters have more in common than Red 13 and Aerith if you don't consider the breeding experiment. The only other connection that really connects Aerith and Red 13 is the idea that they both have some connection to the Ancients. It's pretty weak. Originally, when I had placed my bets for what we were going to see for the anniversary this year, I had figured that Zack and Aerith would have been a great banner together because the characters, you know, they kind of go really well together, and a healer and attacker is kind of what we got here. So maybe at one point Red 13 had been the 4-star base, and Aerith and Zack had been originally thought of as being the 5-star bases. But the other thing to consider about this is that the listing for Zack on this sprite sheet actually lists him as a Final Fantasy VII character, not a Crisis Core character, not any kind of extra entry into the game, which, you know, I guess fair enough. Zack really wasn't part of Final Fantasy VII in any, like, big way. He was not a character you took part of. He was a character that was really more just alluded to in Cloud and, to some extent, Tifa's story. And if you look at his art entry, it is listed and put even with a whole bunch of other Final Fantasy VII characters. So this could mean that it was originally, Zack was intended for this Final Fantasy VII banner. Now, the reason why I would think that this is potentially not going to be anytime in a near future Final Fantasy VII banner is because, well, it's listed as Final Fantasy VII, and the question is then, who do you put Zack with? Because Zack, outside of that, doesn't really have any connection to any other Final Fantasy VII characters. I guess you could throw him on a banner with Cid or Yuffie. If that's the case, it's pretty obvious at this point that Alim is trying to split the characters, the more popular characters, and that could get some really bad backlash. If you think about it, Aerith is a much more popular character than Red 13. If Aerith and Zack had been on the same banner, it might have been just too good of a banner, and, you know, eventually when they did put out a Red 13 and, I don't know, Cid or Yuffie banner, maybe less people would have generally pulled, and if you put Zack on a banner, you can damn be sure that people are going to pull for Zack, because Zack is a popular Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core character. So, honestly, the my general opinion on this potential idea of a leak for a character seems to be a little bit mixed. There's enough evidence to say that this could have just been printed a long time ago when these banners had been planned to be something different. Everything about the Final Fantasy VII event that is currently going on for Aerith and Red 13 has seemed incredibly rushed. If you look at the exploration event is just not that long and not that interesting of an event other than the general nostalgia of it. It's a pretty short exploration event if you consider some of the other exploration events we've seen recently, such as Final Fantasy X, which had a lot of meat to it. You know, doing the puzzles and everything, it felt really well thought out, where the City of the Ancients thing really felt just incredibly quick and rushed. And even when you look at the Aerith and Red 13 banner itself, it feels rushed too, because you see Barrett and Cait Sith as both the 4 and 3 star. And again, I don't necessarily think that that is because Alim originally wanted to make a Yuffie and Cid that were 5-star base. Sure, it's great for the people who love those characters. I'm one of those people who loves Yuffie, but honestly, it's not a banner that would ever seem to really compel people to spend that much lapis on it. So, if you look at the artwork, that artwork was probably printed a while ago. It was designed a while ago. So it could be that just Zack was originally planned to be on this banner and the artwork had already been printed and everything. And, at some point we'll see Zack in the future. The other reason to think that this is not necessarily anything really that big is the fact that it's just a 2D animated sprite and it could be early concept work for Zack, which would be eventually added, but then at some point they realized, hey, we can push Zack to a Crisis Core banner, more people will pull, we can keep Aerith on a banner where, Red 13's there, Red 13 will be popular, but not as popular, and it will split people trying to get Aerith, which is a general way that these gachas feel like. A lot of the times there's usually a character that is highly valued and a character that is less highly valued, even if it ends up being a powerful one, like Sephiroth and Lyra, for example. But it could be that we see another Final Fantasy VII banner really quickly. My original prediction still kind of stands, is the idea that we could see Zack at the anniversary, since Zack is a big character, and I feel like Brave Exvius needs to make a big push to try and get people back in the game before we hit the anniversary, and a lot of goodies are coming, meaning that a lot of people will probably stay just for the, all the free stuff they are eventually going to be getting. So it's a little bit hard to say that this is the, definitive evidence that Zack will be coming to the game, or that he's obviously a character that has always been planned for a long time. You know that Cloud had been planned for a long time, because Alim operates on these ideas of, starting to work on events long before they are ready, so that they always have something to go. But between the Final Fantasy VII event feeling just a little bit haphazardly thrown together, and this information coming out, it could be that we see a very strong upgraded version of Cloud in the near future. Now, what his kit could be and everything like that, honestly, no idea. But for now, this is a big question mark. Why this was the only one, because as far as I know, people have checked through the sprite sheets, and it seems like there is not anything else in the sprite sheet that raised an eyebrow. The only thing that was on the sprite sheet that was a big question mark was Zack. So a big advertising push right before, TGS and major events and the anniversary. It could be very well that Zack is on the very near horizon, either as a Final Fantasy VII or a Crisis Core banner. But for now, we're just going to have to leave it as speculation. But if nothing else, it's kind of been just an interesting thing that I was not planning to make a video about. So tell me what you think. Do you think this is a certainty that Zack is coming very soon, or whether he will be this is just an Alim mistake on top of Alim mistakes. Let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next video. Talk to you later.